key MAGA loyalist Steve Bannon has given an interview to the Sydney Morning Herald where he says Australia's reputation went from being beloved among US Conservatives to shot after COVID. But he reckons that's now flipped and there's plenty of love between Donald Trump and Anthony Albanese. Of course, Steve Bannon said a more MAGA-style government in Canberra would receive even more love. We can but dream. Joining me now to discuss is Professor of American Politics Tim Lynch. Tim, welcome to the program. This renewed love for Australia, is it because of personality, i.e. Kevin Rudd and Anthony Albanese, or is it more pragmatism? Steve Bannon made the point that Albanese isn't exactly his cup of tea, but absolutely central to Trump's love for Australia is our strategic location in the Indo-Pacific.
Hi, James. Great to be here. Yes, well, I think we're always in danger, because we are in Australia, of thinking that the world's preeminent superpower thinks about us a lot. And my suspicion, and it belies Bannon's commentary, Bannon, of course, is not in the administration. Actually, we're not front and centre of Trump's thinking. There's very little to suggest that's the case. He didn't know who Kevin Rudd was, even though he was sat 6 feet from him across the table last year. I think he has, and Bannon's right here, he has a warm and fuzzy appreciation of Australia, but I've never met an American politician that doesn't think of us as mates. I mean, it's one of the extraordinary achievements of Australian culture and its diplomacy that Americans see us as instinctively tied to their experiment. We share the same values and popular culture. Now, does this mean that Donald Trump is going to cut us slack when it comes to issues of trade, when it comes to the containment of China? Well, I think that word I promised never to use when we talked about Donald Trump, but it seems unavoidable in the current moment. He's transactional, and he'll see what good Australia can serve based on the trade or geostrategic issue that he chooses to confront. But I would just be sceptical that he thinks deeply about our geostrategic predicament. We can be helpful, but we're not fundamental, I think, to his worldview.
Well, he hasn't got around to appointing an ambassador to Australia. I have noted that. Let me just go back to Steve Bannon's comment, though, that Australia really lost a lot of credibility with conservative Americans during COVID because of our response to the pandemic. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yes, no, I think that's very true. And our political class here like to posture on how brave the experiment in popular control was and the rollout of the COVID vaccine. In the United States, which also has a federal system, their federal system played it really very differently. I was in Wyoming, the reddest of red states, at the tail end of COVID in 2022. There, the mask mandate lasted a matter of days before popular discontent meant it couldn't be enforced. That notion of what Australia is, the opposite of that it sucks up to government, that we need government in a way which is in opposition, I think, to where America came from. That's born against government, against the same government in the late 18th century, whereas we sought government protection because of our distance. America sought to free itself from it. Trump is not a big reader of history, but I think he gets instinctively that the American system is predicated on a different understanding of government power, even though he rather likes from time to overuse that power.
Well, that segues nicely to the other thing I wanted to ask you about, and that's Trump threatening to use his power, whether militarily or financially, to take hold of Greenland. He's told reporters, "You'll find out," when asked how far he will go. But he's also said we'll work something out regarding Greenland as he heads to Davos to face NATO leaders. All the while, he's ramping up tariff threats against key European allies. Macron has pushed back, warning against new imperialism, and the EU is hinting at major trade retaliation. So it's all happening. What do you take from Trump saying we'll work something out? Is that a climb down, or is this just classic Trump? He'll go hard, then he'll go soft, and eventually he'll sort of get you to a point where you'll agree to what he believes is best for the US?
Oh, I think we've known Trump long enough now to know what classic Trump is, and he's entering his zenith. I mean, I think I've said for the whole of the first year of the second term that this is likely to be the most activist, the most interventionist. That's carried over, of course, into the second year of this second term with the deposing of regimes in his own backyard. Last year, the attacking of Iran. He has an understanding of world politics, which we need a kind of 19th century great man template to try and understand. He sees himself in a tradition that goes back to people like Napoleon, in an American example, someone like Andrew Jackson, who's prepared to stick it to the old sources of power. You remember Andrew Jackson, the guy that had hair almost as flamboyant as Donald Trump. He waged a war against Spain to free Florida from Spanish control. There is a long history in the United States of seizing territory back from the old imperialists. Now, I don't think that Trump reads those history books, but he has imbibed a certain understanding that territory counts. I mean, this is a millennia-old imperative of great power politics, and he seems to be a modern reinvention of it. And we lack the vocabulary in our campuses and in our journals and in the elite class to understand a man who doesn't see international law as the moral arbiter, but sees violence and force, these ancient tools of power. They've come to the fore, and we need a new vocabulary to try and understand them.
You kind of lost me at flamboyant hair, because I just thought that would be a wonderful thing to have, Tim. But and you know, you talk about Trump with the idea of the great man leader. I don't know, in Australia, gee, we'd love someone who was even approaching that sort of description. It's interesting times. It's very interesting watching Donald Trump. Tim Lynch, fascinating to talk with you. Thanks so much for your time tonight.